Hi everybody, my name is Kennedy. I am the Fine Arts Director of Dream City Church, and I am here to give you guys some advice and tips on how to grow your fine arts ministry, because the heart that I have behind fine arts is really to just grow it in general. It's not just to grow it at my church, but to grow it at all different churches, because I believe in fine arts at every church. Giving some background behind my fine arts experience, I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor, and I went to a church in the Midwest all of my life, and it was a very kind of small to medium-sized church, and they did fine arts. And I did it every single year. I did it from 6th grade to 12th grade, and it was a small church, but we made an impact in fine arts, and it was such a big culture thing at my church. Every kid in the youth group did it. You didn't know one kid in the youth group who didn't do fine arts. And as soon as that kid got plugged into fine arts, they were plugged into the youth group. So I saw that value. I made so many friends through it. And even though we were just a small little church, we didn't have a creative arts department, we didn't have all the resources, we still did win nationals sometimes. So that was really impactful for me. And also it's how I discovered some of the gifts that I had. So coming to Dream City, I started working at the church in 2020. I was 19 years old, and it was a big job for me. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to run a fine arts department, and our fine arts department was a lot smaller when I first took it over. So I had to really discover different ways that worked for us and discover different ways that we could use to grow it. I'm here to give you guys some of the things that I've learned, especially when I was 19, things that I wish that I knew when I was running a fine arts department. I've run it for the last 4 years. It's been amazing, and I really have a heart to see it grow for everybody. So let's go ahead and get into it. I have different points here that I want to go over, just some different tips that I have for how you guys can grow your fine arts ministry. So the first point that I have is recruitment. It's really important to start recruitment early. I know it seems like a long time away, like the due date for registration, but that creeps up on you so fast, and it's really difficult to get students to commit to fine arts the week of registration being due. It's a lot easier to get them to commit to teams and stuff in advance, so that you're not scrambling the week of registration being due to try to get teams together. So personally, I start promotion in November. And that is like now, basically. So if you guys are watching this, I'd recommend starting to plan your fine arts team, gathering fine arts coaches as soon as possible. I get promotional materials out in November, and our church has a play called Celebration of Christmas, and I do a lot of face-to-face recruitment. I go to students and I get them to physically sign up for fine arts in front of me. That's what I've noticed is a lot more beneficial, more than just sending them a link, because you can tell them, look at them in the face and say, like, I think you would be great at this. Like, I think this would be great for you. So I start recruiting kids personally. I want to see them at our auditions, and we do auditions here just because it's easier for us to manage our groups that way. If you don't have auditions, that's fine, but it's still perfect to do like face-to-face recruitment, making them feel like they are wanted and a part of a team. So I do that, and I also face-to-face recruit coaches as well. Another thing that I do, I make a fine arts interest form, which is different from the fine arts registration form, and I have them put what categories they're interested in, what solos they're interested in, just so that we can get like a gauge on what they want to do and how many kids are interested in certain groups. So if we see that a bunch of kids on the form said that they're interested in like urban troupe, and we didn't have anybody coaching that, then I know, hey, we need someone to facilitate this, especially because a lot of kids are interested in it. So I try to gauge that ahead of time, just so that we can get kids the support that they need whenever we do enter the fine arts season. I do auditions, and or you could do a recruitment day. You don't have to do auditions, or just like a information day for students to get committed to the team. The next thing that I would say that is really important for a fine arts group is gathering a leadership team. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but we wouldn't have a fine arts group without our coaches. I personally start recruiting coaches well in advance, because it is a lot easier for kids to get behind something when they know they're gonna have that mentor discipling them through it. So we do have coaches for all of our categories: human video, musical theater, stuff like that. And You don't need to have a professional in all of those categories. You just need someone who is willing to disciple those kids through that category. It doesn't need to be like they have Broadway experience in order to coach the kids in drama, but we just look for someone who has the heart behind fine arts. That is the biggest reason why we recruit different coaches. I would start recruiting coaches even earlier than you start recruiting students, just so that you have that established team behind you. I would identify the strengths and talents in those around you, because a lot of people around you may have these hidden talents that you don't even know about. People that you would have never thought could coach human video or never thought could coach musical theater, they are sitting there and they're waiting for those opportunities. So I would start promoting at your church. I would put an announcement out saying that you guys are looking for different people to facilitate fine arts groups, and I have seen an influx in more people being interested to help out with fine arts, specifically with Dream City over the last couple of years, and people that I've known for years, but I never knew they were talented in those areas. So the miracle's definitely in the house. You can definitely find people who are willing to disciple and minister to the kids. Cultivating a strong fine arts culture begins with the coaches. They are the ones who are managing the culture. You have to make sure that they have the correct heart behind fine arts before you're allowing them to be in charge of students, because we don't view it as just they're teaching them a dance or they're teaching them a song. We view it as they are the pastors to those kids in that moment. They are the small group leaders to those kids. So who we put in charge of those groups is really important, and we want to make sure that they have the correct heart behind fine arts. Whether you're a youth pastor or an administrator, you can't be the only one who is doing fine arts. I would definitely say you need a strong team behind you helping you. You don't have to be the only person managing everything. You don't have to be the only person making things happen. That's one thing that I learned when I was younger. I didn't have to be the big boss in charge. It's totally okay to give tasks to different people and hand things off, because you can't let it grow only by yourself. So if you don't want to bear the weight of the administration tasks, I definitely recommend finding someone to manage the administration and maybe send out emails and stuff, be the person in charge of that. This leads me to my next point, communication. Communication is definitely the most important part about managing a fine arts group, at least from what I've known. I would begin an email list with the contact information as soon as possible. It is crazy how much parents don't know. They don't know unless you tell them. A lot of times we think, oh, they know when registration's due, they know, they'll do it. I've had a lot of situations where they don't know, and I need to send them a million emails or else they won't register. So it's very important to have constant communication. Basically pretend like they have no idea what they're doing, because most of the time, especially for new fine arts parents, they don't know what they're doing most of the time. So I take it upon myself to explain everything in the best way that I can, very specifically, give them exact dates right away, when registration's due, when art is supposed to be submitted. And I do that, but I also make it earlier on my end. So I force them to turn in their stuff and register through me probably a week or two earlier than it's actually due. Because most of the time, whenever I say the due date is, that due date comes around and they haven't done it. So that gives me an extra week to go in and make sure that the kids who didn't register actually register. That is a life hack that I've done. I've done it for nationals, I've done it for districts, I do it for art. Sometimes I even do 2 weeks before, because the kids, they're always late. So I would highly recommend holding a parent meeting. It's really good for parents to get that face-to-face connection with you and get that information face-to-face, because even if you do send out emails all the time, a lot of times they don't read them. So it's good to have that face-to-face interaction so you can answer any questions that they have. And I've definitely seen the benefits of that. I also use a GroupMe. I create an email list on Outlook. I add everybody to the email list. I add all the students, I add all the parents, and I use that email list throughout the whole year. I send out small reminders, big reminders, and you can do it that way, or you can also use GroupMe, just anything that you can use to communicate with the kids consistently. I also create an introduction packet for fine arts where I include all the important dates, all the important due dates, but also include our code of conduct and things that they're supposed to know right away. And we also encourage our coaches to relay that information as soon as possible so kids know what they're getting into before they start their groups. So the last tip that I have for you guys is maintaining a healthy fine arts culture. If you guys don't pay attention to your culture, it can get toxic very quickly. And at that point, it can get really dangerous really quickly, especially with the attitudes of the kids. So maintaining a non-toxic culture is imperative. The coaches should treat practices like a ministry in a small group. If they're treating it like anything else, if they're just wanting to coach the kids so that they can win, then they don't have the right heart behind fine arts. That's not why we do fine arts. We don't do it so that we can only win. We do it so that kids can get changed. And we've seen that in so many different ways. We've seen at fine arts, things at nationals that didn't go as far as we wanted them to. Those messages have changed families' lives. For example, just giving a quick example, a couple years ago, we had a fine arts group, and it was human video, and it was filled with all new kids, all beginner kids. And it was all their first time doing human video. And they did not get a call back at nationals, and they were really upset about it. But one thing that did come out of that is that their whole human video was about a girl with a really tough relationship with her father. And the girl who was the lead in that human video in real life actually did have a tough relationship with her father. And her father was actually considering divorcing his wife. He was planning on leaving the family, and he saw that human video and he broke down crying, and he decided not to leave his family just because he watched that human video. So even though they didn't get far at nationals, that human video changed a family's life. So I would say that team had more of a win than any of our other teams that maybe went farther, and I just think that's the real culture of why we do what we do at Fine Arts. So one thing that we say, we have a lot of different teams that do the same category. So we have 5 human videos, we have a couple different dances, and that might seem like it gets complicated, but one thing that we say to our coaches is that we're multiple teams, but we have one heart. So we always encourage our different students, like, even if you're not on that team, even if you're not the team who advances, cheer on your friends. And we have really seen that with our teams. We've seen people cheer on others, even though they're not the one winning, they're not the one advancing. And that's really heartwarming for me. And we always just want to encourage the culture of just supporting each other through that way. So if you do happen to have multiple teams from one church, that is definitely something to push, is one or different teams, but one heart. I do not like when coaches say like, oh, it's just healthy competition. I don't think there's a such thing as healthy competition, because I don't think students know how to do that. I don't think they know how to compete in a healthy way. It just always turns to unhealthy competition. So I never tell them like, oh, try to beat the other team, or oh, like, we're so happy that we beat the other team. That's not healthy to say. Like, we always want to encourage other people, and we always want them to keep the right heart behind fine arts. As soon as you start encouraging competition in their hearts, I think it can be a downward spiral. So we just steer away from that conversation. We have a zero tolerance for negative attitudes in fine arts, and especially gossip with other people, against their coaches, and we want to nip it in the butt right away. We actually have students sign a code of conduct before they even participate in fine arts through Dream City. And you might think, oh, it's not that big of a production. It is. We don't want students to have bitter hearts toward each other. We don't want them to stir negative attitudes. So having them sign that is actually really important, and has helped us in different situations. So I actually included the code of conduct in our packet here, but you guys can refer to it if you want an example for a good code of conduct to write up. We also include rules that they have to sign off on, which include dress code, also a liability form for injuries. I know that sounds like really businessy, but it's important, especially when you're in human video flipping kids around. You don't want a kid going to the hospital and you getting sued. So that is important. We haven't had that happen. We haven't had anyone try to sue us, but we do try to keep a liability form for injuries. So it's important to have a dress code as well. I would say that the dress code should be different depending on the category that you have. For example, if you're wearing a crop top in human video, it's way easier for something to slip out whenever you're stunting. So that's why we have those certain things, or even just tennis shoes for human video. We do encourage a dress code, and that is a lot easier to facilitate if you make that known up front rather than trying to tell them during practice. So I know that this is an information video for districts, but nationals is a whole separate thing. It's another big job that's a part of facilitating fine arts. And I would highly encourage you guys, if you've never taken your kids to nationals, if they do make it, I would highly encourage you to try to make it happen, even if it's just one student who made it to nationals. It really does change lives. It's not just the competition, but it's also being able to see all the different talents that are out there, but also going to the services. The services are amazing. There's a National Youth Conference that's happening at the same time as Fine Arts. I've seen lives changed at nationals, and it really just helps them be inspired to all the different things that they can do. If you can make nationals happen, I'd highly encourage you to do that. I know it seems daunting to book flights, book hotels, all those different things, but if you ever need advice on how to do that, I'm happy to help you. At 19, I was trying to book hotels for 70 people and book flights, and it was really scary, but it's actually not as bad as you think. The last couple years, I've been able to kind of get a system down. So if you need help with that, I'm happy to help you with that. Same thing for districts registration. We have the kids solidify their groups for nationals in advance. Obviously some kids can't always make it, so we have to sometimes sub out kids for nationals who want to participate in those groups. So I try to get that information solidified as soon as districts is over, so that the pressure coming up to nationals isn't as great. There are a couple different resources on the National Youth Conference website. If you have a large group going to nationals, they actually allow you to reserve a block of rooms at a hotel. I've done that the last couple years. We've requested a block of rooms because we have a larger group, and we've always gotten into a hotel. So sometimes it's closer to the convention center, sometimes it's farther away, but we've always gotten into a hotel. So if you need help on how to do that, I can help you as well, depending on how many rooms you need. But I think it's if you need more than 10 rooms, you should do the block. So in Columbus, we were actually able to get a hotel connected to the convention center, and that is, I highly recommend that. Getting connected to the convention center, it's way easier. I would book flights right after districts. The way that we do it, if you're wondering how we book flights for so many people, our youth staff basically just books a flight. We book any flight, and then we send out the confirmation number. We send out the flight number and the times to everybody. And we say, hey, if you want to fly with us, you can. This is our flight number, and we really encourage students who are traveling without their parents to book on our flight. Either way, students who are traveling without their parents, we try to make sure that they have a chaperone with them traveling, but it is not required for students to fly with us to nationals. A lot of them bring their parents, so they do fly with their parents, but if you have a bunch of students traveling unchaperoned, I'd recommend that you get them all on your flight so that you don't have a bunch of unchaperoned students flying by themselves. That's all of the advice that I have right now. I definitely have more resources. I have more little notes and things that I've learned throughout the years that I can't fit in this video. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. We'll include my email in this video, I think, but I am happy to help. I want to see fine arts grow, not just in Arizona, but everywhere, and not just at Dream City. I want to see it grow everywhere just because I believe it. I believe in it for everybody. So thank you for listening. Hopefully this helped in some way.